She crossed the headland that rose between the two coves and carried on into the gut where her grandmother had delivered Mary Tryphena's brother that morning. The landwash was red with blood by the time she and the old woman made their way back, a scum of grease on the harbour's surface. The heart and liver already carted up to Kingme's rooms on fish barrows, two men harvesting chunks of baleen from the creature's jaw with axes, the mouth so massive they could almost stand upright inside it. Women and children floated barrels in the shallows to catch the ragged squares of blubber thrown down to them. Mary Tryphena's grandmother knotted her skirts above the knee before wading grimly into the water. The ugly work went on through the day. Black fires were burning on the beach to render the blubber to oil, and the stench stoppered the harbour, as if they were labouring in a low-ceilinged warehouse. The white underbelly was exposed where the carcass keeled to one side, the stomach's membrane floating free in the shallows. The toucher triplets were poking idly at the massive gut with splitting knives and prongs, dirty seawater pouring from the gash they opened, a crest of blood, a school of undigested capelin and herring, and then the head appeared, the boys screaming and falling away at the sight. It was a human head, the hair bleached white. One pale arm flopped through the ragged incision and dangled into the water. For a time, no one moved or spoke, watching as if they expected the man to stand and walk ashore of his own accord. Devine's widow waded over finally to finish the job, the body slipping into the water as she cut it free. The Catholics crossed themselves in concert, and Jabez Trim said, "Naked came I from my mother's womb." The body was dragged out of the water by Devine's widow and Mary Tryphena's father. No one else would touch it, though every soul on the beach crowded around to look. A young man's face, but the strangeness of the details made it impossible to guess his age. White eyebrows and lashes, a patch of salt-white hair at the crotch. Even the lips were colourless, nipples so pale they were nearly invisible on the chest. Mary Tryphena hugged her father's thigh and stared, Colum holding her shoulder to stop her moving any closer. Kingme Sellers prodded at the corpse with the tip of his walking stick. He looked at Devine's widow, and then turned to take in each person standing about him. "This is her doing," he said. "She got the very devil in her, called this creature into our harbour for God knows what end." "Conjured us, you mean?" James Woundy said. It was so long since Kingme accused Devine's widow of such things that some in the crowd were inclined to take him seriously. He might have convinced others if he'd managed to leave off mentioning his livestock. "You know what she has done to my cow," he said, "and to every cow birthed of her since." It was an old joke on the shore, and there was already a dismissive tremor in the gathering, when Devine's widow leaned over the body, flicking at the shrunken penis with the tip of her knife. "If this was my doing," she said, "I'd have given the poor soul more to work with than that." Kingme pushed his way past the laughter of the bystanders, saying he'd have nothing more to do with the devilment, but no one followed after him. They stood a while discussing the strange event, a fisherman washed overboard in a storm, or a suicide made strange by too many months at sea, idle speculation that didn't begin to address the man's appearance or his grave in the whale's belly. They came finally to the consensus that life was a mystery and a wonder beyond human understanding, a conclusion they were comfortable with, though there was little comfort in the thought. The unfortunate soul was owed a Christian burial, and there was the rest of the day's work to get on with. There was no church on the shore. An itinerant Dominican friar named Phelan said Mass when he passed through on his endless ecclesiastical rounds, and Jabez Trim held a weekly Protestant service at one of Sellers' stores that was attended by both sides of the house when Father Phelan was away on his wanders. Trim had no credentials other than the ability to read and an incomplete copy of the Bible, but every soul on the shore crowded the storeroom to soak a while in the Scripture's balm. An hour's reprieve from the salt and drudge of their lives, for myrrh and aloe and hyssop, for pomegranates and green figs and grapes, cassia and cedar beams and swords forged in silver. Jabez married Protestant couples. He baptized their children and buried their dead, and he agreed to say a few words over the body before it was set in the ground. Mary Tryphena's father lifted the corpse by the armpits, while James Woundy took the legs.